This week, Thyaga Vasudevan from Sky High Security is with us to discuss the future of data control. Then for this week's topic segment, we talk about why detection has failed and whether it has failed. Finally, in the enterprise security news, fundings and acquisitions are going strong. Can cyber insurance be profitable? Some new free tools shared by the community. RSAC gets a new CEO. Large-scale enterprise AI initiatives aren't going well. LLM impacts on exploit development, AI vulnerabilities, global risk reports, and floppies are still used daily, but maybe not for long. All that and more in this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Let's face it, enterprise data is everywhere. It's spread across apps, devices, and hybrid cloud environments, and traditional security tools are struggling to keep up. That's where Sky High Security makes a difference. Its Security Service Edge platform brings together capabilities like data security posture management, remote browser isolation, secure web gateway, and AI to unify and strengthen data protection. Designed for today's digital landscape, Sky High Security helps organizations discover, classify, and track sensitive data, no matter where it lives. To learn how businesses are future-proofing their data security, visit securityweekly.com/Sky High Security. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy International Sweatpants Day. This is episode 443, the HTTPS of episodes, recorded on Thursday, January 21st, 2026. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the Dean of Data Science, the Knight of Neurodiversity, the Watcher of Data Center Waste, Jackie McGuire. How you doing, Jackie?
I am fantastic, and I am wearing sweatpants head to toe today, so I came fully prepared.
Nice. Also joining us, the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell, Sean Metcalf. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, Adrian, doing good. I missed the memo on sweatpants, so next time.
It is definitely that period of year here as we prepare for what looks like an impending snowpocalypse, kind of in the Midwest and on the East Coast here. Definitely the right choice if you're working from home. A quick announcement, then we'll jump into the interview. Security Weekly listeners can save $100 on their RSAC 2026 All Access Pass. RSAC 2026 conference will take place March 23rd to March 26th in San Francisco. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC26 and use the code 56U5SecWeekly. We hope to see you there. All right. This interview is sponsored by Sky High Security. I had to get used to that. I originally put Sky High Networks all throughout my script, and I was like, nope, it's changed. Today's topic is the future of data control. We are excited to have Thyaga Vasudevan with us today. Thyaga is the EVP of Product for Sky High Security. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adrian and Jackie. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. Looking forward to the conversation. Very, very interesting topic. We've covered this a lot on the show. We've talked a lot about SASE and DSPM when it came out. We wanted to understand what it was all about. So we actually had a lot of DSPM founders come on the show, had a lot of conversations about that. I think most of that maybe was before Jackie joined, but longtime listeners will remember us trying to figure out what this data security posture management category was, whether or not it was replacing DLP or complementary to DLP. There was many, many questions. So we spent a lot of time kind of going down that rabbit hole. So, catch us up a little bit. Like where is DSPM now, and how does it fit into SASE, into that kind of a product portfolio?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adrian. But first, let me level set what DSPM is. So DSPM stands for Data Security Posture Management. It's fundamentally answering one critical question for every enterprise. Where is my data? along with that, who has access to it and what is the risk it represents right now. And so for years, security has been focused on networks, endpoint, and applications, but data has quietly exploded within the enterprise. And just talking to Jackie about that, like it was across cloud storage, SaaS apps, data lakes, collaboration platform, now AI pipelines. So most companies actually don't even know where their sensitive data resides. So DSPM changes all of that because now it continuously discovers sensitive data across the entire enterprise, cloud, SaaS, and then classifies it, maps it, who has access to it, and highlights where the exposure is. So the real value of DSPM is not just visibility, it's about control, because it now allows your security teams to prioritize the risk based on real data and not guesswork. And that's where the tie-ins with SASE comes in, because SASE can give a lot of vectors and signals to understand the risk of the data. DSPM then sends the signals back to SASE so that it can enforce zero trust controls on that risky data. So it's mutually beneficial, and that's why we believe it's a strong adjacency to SASE.
And does that, so before, we've definitely seen DLP built into SASE, but it seems a lot easier, like instead of pulling apart every TLS session and actually inspecting the data within it, if you know that the source, the database, that there's a database on one side and you already know what data is in there, and you see data coming out of that database, you don't have to tear everything open to figure out that, we know what data is in there because we know what's in that database, right?
That's exactly right. Because with DSPM, you can continuously scan for, firstly, data that's at rest, which is what is inside the database. But because of the synergy with SASE, which has technology like your inline proxy or your ZTNA, you can understand the risk of the data that's in motion, in transit. So continuously, DSPM is going to give you a complete 360 visibility of the data that's static, in motion within the enterprise, but also how it is flowing in and out of the organization. And using that, you can create some really robust security policies within the enterprise.
Yeah. One of our big concerns when DSPM came out was, what does the coverage look like? And some of them were built specifically for cloud, while others, you could put these classifiers, you could put the DSPM components just about anywhere, which seemed to make a lot more sense, especially in an era where there's a lot more concern about the location of data, data residency, things like that, and a lot more hybrid use. That's something we see more and more. So how important was that to make sure that that this wasn't just like, we know what's happening with data in AWS, but that stuff that's still on-prem, who knows?
What a great question. Because for the last decade or so, as you rightly mentioned, Adrian, security vendors told enterprises that, hey, everything was moving to the cloud. So cloud-only security was good enough. But guess what? Reality turned out to be very, very different. So for example, today, most large enterprises run in a hybrid world. They have SaaS, they have public cloud for sure, but they also have on-prem data centers. They have private clouds, they have legacy applications, they have regulated environments, like you mentioned, and regional data residency requirements. So in many industries, say financial, healthcare, public sector, a huge percentage of their most sensitive data is still not on the public cloud. So what changed is not just where the apps run, but how data moves. And so data flows between on-prem systems, cloud data lakes, SaaS platforms, AI models, etc., is what is really important to give the enterprise that visibility. And if you just focus on cloud only, repositories that creates spot. So hybrid security really closes all of them.
How often do you find that your customers, once they start getting a sense of kind of how data's flowing, find that people have data stored in places where they have access to it, but the data is a classification that they shouldn't have access to?
More often than not, because when they run our DSPM and they get that visibility, suddenly they have that aha moment and they see this, oh my God, I did not realize that this kind of classified sensitive data is on this kind of repository and has access to these sets of people, which kind of increases the risk of the data. So the first order of the business, Jackie, is firstly, get me that visibility, which I was oblivious to. The second part of it is that what do I do with it? Which is now I need to be able to enforce those controls so that I can prevent that data from even going into those repositories in the first place or getting shared from those repositories in the first place. So to answer your question, more often than not, customers have that fall out of the chair kind of a moment, like, oh my God, and then they have to do something about that.
Yeah, because if you need something and you can't access it, you just hit up your coworker that can, and you say, "Hey, can you send that to me in Slack?"
There
and
you
then
go.
you throw it in a folder that you have access.
So common.
to.
So common. I tell you, even more common use.
Hard.
Yeah,
That's right. And even more common today with AI is you have a sensitive data sitting there. I copy a portion of that sensitive data and I paste it into an AI, generative AI application. Because I don't have time to read it. I'll say, hey, summarize that for me. Guess what I've just done?
Yeah.
I've just copied that data and pasted it into that set. Move the data over. There you go. So unless you have a way to detect that portion of it came from a sensitive file or sensitive content, you cannot paste that. So you need that kind of security tools to give you that visibility and that control.
So how does DSPM know this? Is it effectively a DLP engine on steroids, or is there customer elements that they have to basically say, okay, this database is our crown jewels, make sure that nothing comes out of this?
Great question, Sean. It is actually a combination of both. So as an example, it definitely leverages the deep classification that enterprises build from a data loss prevention standpoint. So this is where data security conscious customers were mostly focused. But now, because of all the regulations worldwide, they have now moved or extended that to data compliance. So the first order of business is to use the same classifications and figure out which other pieces of content match that classification and where are they located. So they use the same classifications that they have known for many, many years, and they now extend it to entire enterprises. But on top of that, customers can also say, I'm not just going to use out-of-the-box classifications that DSPM vendors have. I'm going to fingerprint known sensitive data within my organization. Like you said, it could be a database of employee records, it could be a database of customer records, healthcare patient records, or it could be snapshots of sensitive files present in certain folders, because even portions of that file, when it gets exfiltrated, like the example I gave with AI applications, I need to be able to prevent that. So you can use out-of-the-box rich classifications that is available in the system that previously you used only for protection. Now you're going to use for compliance and visibility. Or you can also do fingerprinting of your sensitive data, which is kind of specific to each organization.
You mentioned compliance. How well do you think customers are doing at keeping up with all of the various kind of state-specific and small country-specific data privacy requirements that have sprung up? Do you find that they're proactively going out and looking for the data that exists that should be under those different regulations, or is it usually they don't know what they don't know until they find it?
We find a mix of customers, quite frankly. And specifically, if you are operating in a regulated environment, then you most likely know what is the regulation that is shaping that industry, that is shaping data security for that organization. Because right now, there is no doubt in our minds that regulation is one of the biggest forces reshaping data security. Across the world, governments are saying the same thing. If your data belongs to our citizens, it must be governed and protected and often stored under our laws, and more so under the current geopolitical climate, right? And we see this in GDPR in Europe, the new Data Protection and Privacy Act in India, LGPD in Brazil, PDPL in Saudi Arabia, use whatever acronyms you want. There's so many of them. And there are very specific, also even specific verticals are coming up with their own data regulations. And with AI, there is AI specific regulations coming online. So all of them have very specific data sovereignty laws, data protection laws, and so on and so forth. So the platform gives you a lot of ability to configure the laws, configure the rules to answer your data regulatory needs, and not just visibility, but also creating those compliance reports that are needed to answer your auditor and go and obviously not be fined for not meeting the regulatory laws.
Do you feel like the AI integration into a lot of different elements in organizations raises the profile of DSPM and what it does? Since if that data isn't categorized, or if it isn't protected in some way, shape, or form, any user can just ask the AI about finding me certain types of data, and then the AI is just going to give that access if it finds that access is granted.
100%. The role of DSPM becomes even more significant with the growth of AI applications. And when I say AI applications, it could be, just the SaaS AI applications like the Chat GPTs of the world, Lovables of the world, or it could be enterprise AI applications like Microsoft Copilot or Chat GPT Enterprise or GitHub Copilot. Or it could be custom built AI applications. I could have downloaded Llama and built in my own custom AI applications and deployed it within my own private data center. Regardless of what kind of AI applications you're using, all of these AI applications, specifically if it's generative AI applications, rely on your data to learn. And so it's really important for the organizations to get visibility into what kind of data is going into these AI applications and what kind of data users getting access via these applications. To answer your question, Sean, it's really important in an AI first world, which is the world we are heading towards right now. DSPM becomes absolutely the central part from where you should start your security journey.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of data. Most organizations are full of data. To the point to where when I used to train penetration testers, I would train them to go after file shares back in the day. Before we had things like Google Drive, OneDrive, things like that. Because in every single case, there was sensitive data in documents on everyone, full control, Windows shares and things like that. So, it seems like it could possibly be overwhelming, right? Deploying something like DSPM. So I imagine you need to have kind of a crawl, walk, run, or maybe you just focused on your regulated data first. Like how are people prioritizing how they go through? Like I imagine it's like a like there's a whole process. Like you just have to consume everything that was discovered and kind of take that in and let it marinate for a bit before you can even start creating policies and stuff like that, I imagine.
Yes, I completely echo with what you said, because most teams, what we have seen, most teams succeed when they do this in phases, like you described, crawl, walk, and run. The typical workflow is first get the baseline posture with DSPM. Where is my sensitive data and what's really been exposed into what kind of applications? Then usually start with a high impact use case. Most organizations are probably going to use Office 365. So look at the kind of data that's going into these kind of applications, and then protect your exfiltration, means limit risky sharing, control AI access like Microsoft Copilot, etc. And then you can turn on enforcement gradually. Initially, it could be monitoring the data that's going in. Next, it could be warning and coaching the user. Hey, you cannot use these risky AI applications. Instead, you have an alternative SaaS application. And then after that, you gradually enforce security controls like remediation or block so that you don't necessarily break the business. Because we fundamentally believe that security cannot come in the middle of productivity. And so it's very important to do these kind of controls in phases. And the last one is, as you be successful in your mission critical applications, then operationalize it across the other applications. Find the owners, automate the remediation, track measurable risk reduction. So long story short, don't boil the ocean. Pick the one or two main critical applications, instrument it end to end, prove the value fast, and then scale.
Right. One piece, I think it's clear, like obviously you want to understand where your data is. You want to understand what your data is. You have this discovery phase, this classification phase. But I also want to talk about the kind of the why and the how, right? Like I did this workshop 4 times last year in the second half of last year called Rethink Data Governance for a Generative AI World. And every time I did that workshop, I would ask the audience a question. And this is an audience I'm standing in front of. And ask people to put up their hands, like how many of you have data flow diagrams? Okay, how many of you have them for like your critical data? How many of you have them for your regulated? I never got a single hand for any of that. I'm not sure any of these people ever saw a data flow diagram before, but having been a PCI QSA, this is a process you have to go through. You have to create and maintain a data flow diagram that shows how cardholder data comes into the organization, how it flows out, every point that it touches. You're putting Wireshark on systems and checking, inspecting packets and looking at files in the file system, because 100% of the time you'll find regulated data where it's not supposed to be, or where my clients would tell me it should not exist. So can DSPM, do you see people doing that? Is that something DSPM can help with? Because I'm going to look at the results and I understand that there's 1 million credit card numbers on the badge reader PC in the lobby, but why is it there? How did it get there?
Adrian, one of the biggest myths in cybersecurity is that companies actually understand their own data. In reality, data is so incredibly messy. It's spread across so many different silos and repositories within organizations, and it's constantly being copied. They're creating 5 copies of that same sensitive file and bringing in different repositories. It's incredibly hard. So when you are doing your workshop and you're asking them, hey, do you have a data flow diagram? And nobody is raising the hand, I don't blame them. Data flows today are very hard, and especially for asking an IT organization teams to draw diagrams on the whiteboard, it's simply too dynamic to track them. But here's the problem. If you don't know where your data is, how it moves, or how it touches, or what's the risk of it, you can't secure it. And you definitely can't safely use it for AI. And that's why DSPM is so powerful, because it's giving the organizations like a living map of their data, where it lives, how sensitive it is, who has access to it, where is it exposed. And it turns an almost an impossible, like you said, documentation or a drawing exercise into a continuously updated, automated view of reality within their organizations. And once you have that, suddenly AI governance, zero trust controls, compliance, breach prevention becomes practical, not just theoretical, right? So that's why I always believe that this has now become central to enforce zero trust security within their organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine this often the discovery piece and classification piece, that first week, first couple of weeks, maybe the first couple of months when they're looking at this stuff triggers a cleanup phase?
You would think that it does, and they would think that they want to do the cleanup, but when they start the exercise of the cleanup, that itself is a multi-week effort. So once they detect that there is some data which it should not be there, first and foremost thing they do is prevent more of that such instances from happening. So first prevent more and then start the cleanup of the data that already is there. Because once they get audited and they see that, and the auditors see that that sensitive data resides in those repositories where it should not be, they're going to get fined for it. So they don't want more exposure first. So prevent that. So enforce those policies. And then they start the cleanup.
I was figure maybe it just triggered a reduction in force. You figure out who in your organization has been blurring the lines between classifications of data.
Well, I was thinking when Adrian mentioned the 1 million credit cards on a badge reader, I was thinking that's why people use Stripe, to take those credit cards and just get it off of the corporate system.
And it tells a story, right? Like I can imagine this leading to a lot of changes of processes. Once you understand what your data flows are, man, we could do better, right? Right. You come to these conclusions like, we can make this more efficient. We can make this cleaner, right?
Yes, agreed. So, if I had to take a moment and boil this into some kind of a practical playbook for, the security leaders, CISOs, I would do these 5 things. Let's say, first and foremost, I'll start with visibility. Because you can't protect what you can't see. To your point, map where your data lives, how it flows, how AI tools are using it, not just in theory, in reality. This is what DSPM is going to give you. Second, revisit your zero trust model, because most zero trust vendors just focus on users and devices, right person on the right device at the right access to the right cloud service. The next evolution is data-centric zero trust, because now you're making decisions based on what type of data it is and not just who the user is. Third, to the discussion we had before, design for hybrid from day one. The sensitive data is going to live across cloud, private cloud, on-prem, etc. Then, as you mentioned, right, it's not just the where it is resident, but how the data flows. So protect data at rest and data in motion. And lastly, put the governance framework in place now, especially newer frameworks like AI governance that's coming out in every region, etc. So plan for that before the adoption of AI services just goes through the roof and it explodes. So this is what we believe from what's the practical way to enforce zero trust data controls within an organization.
Well, on that note, Thyaga, I think that's an excellent point to wrap on. I was just going to ask you for that anyway, but yeah, that sounds like a great plan, great roadmap there. Thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. This was a great discussion.
It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Adrian, Jackie, Sean. Talk to you soon.
And make sure you visit securityweekly.com/skyhigh-security to learn more. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to discuss why detection has failed for this week's topic segment. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive Security, the first cybersecurity company backed by OpenAI. AI has fundamentally reshaped the threat landscape. Today, the greatest risk isn't someone breaking into your systems, it's someone breaking into your trust. Deepfake voices joining your video calls, AI-crafted phishing emails that perfectly mimic your executives, even synthetic job applicants entering through the front door. Adaptive Security is designed to counter these new realities. The company delivers real-time attack simulations that show security teams exactly what modern AI-driven threats look and sound like, and prepares them to respond effectively. Learn more at securityweekly.com/adaptive. Zero Trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny at execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's Zero Trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Right now with Tanium, IT and security teams complete patching programs in minutes, not weeks. Reduce software vulnerabilities by up to 97%. Cut incident response times by up to 99%. This is not just IT, this is autonomous IT, making business, your business, unstoppable. Tanium, autonomous IT, unstoppable business. See more at securityweekly.com/Tanium. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. For this week's topic segment, we're discussing why detection has failed. So very, very spicy statement, I know, but Caleb Sema put it out there, not me. I'm just picking it up and running with it. Caleb is pretty well known, pretty prolific on LinkedIn, shares a lot of interesting stuff, has been a CISO in many different roles. And basically, so he gave a talk somewhere in the Bay Area, I forget for what group, about why detection engineering, what the struggles are, why basically this is not working. Like SOCs are not detecting attacks in many, many cases. Even though we spent all this money on it, we got all the fancy tools, we got it staffed with people, we're still, companies are often still notified by a third party or something like that. That's still pretty common, or more common these days. They're notified by the people that hacked them when they get the ransom note. And I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm interested in your thoughts as well. Amelie Coran also commented on this, so I've included both links to both those LinkedIn posts on this in the show notes. But yeah, it's and dwell time is still baffling to me. Like I don't think it should be a metric until we're actually detecting things. Like average of 194 days. If you're detecting something in 194 days, you're not detecting it. You're accidentally stumbling across it at that point. Like statistically, you got to trip over a dead body at some point, right? Like it's accidental, I think, when you detect something 200 days out.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a little cynical about a bunch of the comments on this for like, that's why prevention is so important. And I was like, what?
Except when it fails.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I was going to compare it to something vulgar, but yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do
I know where you would have gone with that.
Yeah.
My brain caught up.
Eventually you're going to notice something's getting weird, right? So like, I think part of this has to do with metrics and the fact that at a C-level, a lot of executives want to be able to measure the CISO the same way they measure like the CFO. And CFOs have very specific metrics around money that you can say, okay, here are our margins. Here, you can say with a pretty definitive statement, here's what our tax burden is in this state, because that's all accounted for. And so trying to apply these finite metrics that you maybe can use with your marketing group about conversion to security is a huge issue. But then number two is that everything you try to measure, people are going to game. Like it's impossible for people not to game a system. So what you measure really matters. And if you're measuring, and I think one of the things he points out in here is like minimum time to detection. And if you're resolving every single alert that fires in your SIEM within a short period of time, you can game those numbers. So I think some of it has to do with the fact that we try to measure security the same way we measure the other functions within a business, when it is a fundamentally different beast that is not well defined. So you can't really put metrics around it that are well defined, but also that anytime you give people metrics to hit, they're going to do whatever they need to do to hit those metrics to get their bonus at the half or the end of the year. So, I mean,
I think there's issues all the way down here. The definition of a detection shouldn't be, this login looks anomalous. You're trying to detect an attack, right? That is a piece of evidence that could lead you to detect an attack, but in itself, that's not a detection. That's just a footnote. That's just a potential piece of evidence, right? You still have to go analyze that, tie it to other things. We're using the term detect here, you don't just find a knife in somebody's front yard and go to the nearest house. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. I have even less knowledge of police work, so maybe that's a poor analogy for me to draw there. But I would think you would have to gather some. It would be circumstantial, and you'd need more evidence than just it was in the front yard. Like it's next to a road. Somebody could have flung it out the window. If I did a murder, I probably wouldn't throw it out my front door into my front yard. Right. But I feel like that's what's happening in cyberland here is the folks doing this, how much training do they get on how to do an investigation? How much training do they do on how breaches happen to other organizations? I feel like we just sit again. It's like a busy work generator is all I'm seeing in a lot of these cases. Like it beeps and boops, and when it does that, we press this button.
I think you're right. I think we need to ensure that we're evaluating what detection is systematically, and a detection should be something that is associated to something malicious, something that's known malicious in that environment. And I think part of the problem is the SIEM vendors have said for years, get a SIEM, here you go, we're going to detect stuff for you. And then once you get the SIEM, they're like, go ahead and create rules. They're like, what about the rules that are there baked in? They're like, no, you need to create rules for your environment. And then the question is, but aren't these things that are bad kind of universally bad? Like if we notice that there's a administrative account that's used on one workstation and then another one logs on and then another one logs on, and we show that there's actual traffic between those, that's universally bad, or at least something that needs to be investigated, right? And the SIEM vendors are like, no, those are stuff you need to figure out in your environment. And I think the other part of the problem is the detection analysis isn't done as part of that. You have to ensure that when you create a detection rule, that there's an SOP associated with it, so that there's an action that generates off of that, not just an alert. And someone goes and figures out, okay, what is this? And then it gets refined. And using something like purple teaming, which probably has a million different definitions in the industry, where you have a red teamer or a pen tester that is actively exploiting something on the network that is identified as something that this is what is used, this is what attackers are doing, and then can correlate that to a detection, an alert that pops up. And if there's
you need something that's detectable to build detections.
Exactly. And once you have detections, once you have detections, we need to validate those detections. We need to ensure they work. It's kind of like when you take your car to the car mechanic and you say, hey, it's making this noise when I drive 30 miles an hour. Please figure out what it is and fix it. If the mechanic doesn't actually drive the car over 30 miles an hour and they say they fixed it, they probably haven't done anything but charged you $180 for a diagnostic.
Or if they can't replicate the issue. Like, I think a lot of this too is really bad expectations, because to your point, Sean, you know that when you, from practicality and having experience, you know that you're going to have to write a whole bunch of your own sim rules, but that's definitely not what your freaking SE tells you when they're selling you the sim.
Yes.
How many times do you hear, it just works right out of the box?
Right.
And like every time, like, with it, day one deployment, like day one visibility, day one like remediation, we're just going to automatically fix everything. Like, that's how these things are sold. It's not sold with like, hey, you're going to need approximately 200 labor hours from somebody in your organization who has experience with detections, who understands the unique nature of our tech stack, our labor stack, because that's another thing too, to your point, is like, different SOCs, different security functions emphasize different like capabilities within those functions. And so, you know, some people are really overladen with just analysts who are clicking dismiss all day because they don't have their alerts set up properly. So understanding what labor you have to work with, what you're actually protecting, like a lot of it has to do with just unrealistic expectations, and people love retail therapy. So something goes wrong, we'll just buy a tool and then we'll have day one visibility.
And to that point, Jackie, when you look at something like a macro firing, a macro executing on a document, okay, is that bad or is that expected? Based on our labor force. So we probably expect that in certain HR environments. We probably expect that in certain finance environments. But should it be happening on a secretary's computer that reports to the CEO? Maybe, maybe not. And that's where that understanding of the environment and who's doing what definitely matters. Like if we see PowerShell running on that same secretary's computer, that's probably not supposed to happen unless there's a signed PowerShell that IT is pushed out to actually run something.
Like maybe he has a background in data science, or
maybe Sean's creeping around the office.
or accountants, right? Yeah.
But how much of it is alert fatigue too?
Yeah.
Because when you don't actually fix the issue causing false alerts, it is very easy to accidentally dismiss a legitimate alert. Because if you have a list of 65 false alerts, and when you took over, you know, that analyst role and somebody was like, oh yeah, those are always just bogus, just hit dismiss, it's fine, just resolve it. Like that's stuff gets
Why would you just leave
noise.
it like that?
Exactly. Because like nobody's getting a bone. And this is where it goes back to what you measure matters. If somebody is not incentivized to go fix that, or gets recognized for, hey, this person went out and fixed this thing that was causing 60 false alerts a week, let's throw them a bonus, a spot bonus for that. Like nobody's going to take the time to do it, because it takes a heck of a lot less time to just click dismiss 60 times. That takes 30 seconds if you're really good with your mouse, than to actually go take the 3, 4, 5, 6 hours it's going to take to hunt down what's causing that false alert, what rules you need to put in place, and understand what might accidentally get missed if that rule is too broad. But yeah, I mean, very few people at that level are incentivized to fix it. The same reason you get soda that tastes like crap from a soda machine, because if nobody's being paid to clean the soda machine, nobody's going to take time to be like, oh, maybe we should clean the fountain. Like you have to incentivize the right behavior.
Yeah. I worked a breach where there was a user that had downloaded a zip file and opened it up and then ran the malware that was in it 5 times. And there was a SIM alert that went with that, but it was dismissed because it was thought of something that was normal that just needed to get dismissed. So there needs to be a life cycle for these detections. There needs to be a life cycle where it is, hey, we postulate, we hypothesize, we think that this is going to detect a certain thing. Okay, we go ahead and create that. Let's go ahead and make that thing happen on a computer so that we can detect and see if it is detected. If it's detected, then thumbs up. Then the next step is there needs to be an SOP, an action that comes out of that. And then there's got to be a life cycle of these detections for if there's a new strategy that attackers are using and they're not using this older strategy anymore, then maybe we can deprecate that alert, but probably not get rid of it. And so there has to be this thought around life cycle of detection, not just a single thing that we set up and we never see that happens.
It's a constant development life cycle. Yeah. There needs to be a feedback loop, right? You know, like it's, and we've got a wealth of data now. Like there's reports from Mandiant, from Code 42, like DFIR reports. Follow Kevin Beaumont on Mastodon. Like there's a wealth of details of, this thing happened in 1,200 ransomware events last year. You should build a detection around that, right? Like that should take priority. And that detection, should maybe take priority over other detections. And I think the other factor here, like your example of did a macro run, is a great example of a maybe. And I think maybe detections are dangerous. And there's this, one of the concerns he brings up is coverage. There's this kind of like FOMO where, we have to detect everything an attacker does. Sure, that's fine. Everything an attacker does, maybe you're capturing those events, they're going into the SIM, but you don't want to alert on every potential thing, on every maybe. You want to prioritize alerts on, the macro ran and immediately reached out and downloaded something. Okay, that's closer to a red flag. Like we don't expect an Excel macro to go download executable binaries. Like that's kind of weird. We don't expect Microsoft Word to spawn a command shell, a PowerShell. Mm-hmm. Those are closer to like every time that happens, I want to know, I'm going to go check that out. But if it's something where like, maybe, that's not a technical user and that shouldn't happen. Maybe it shouldn't happen at 3. Like once you start throwing in all these maybes, I think that's where all the noise is coming from.
Yeah, and it goes back to knowing who your users are, your user base, and what's normal in that environment, and in order to identify the anomalous activity. The anomalous activity should be investigated. And the other part of it is attackers have gotten very good with using the tools that are in the environment already, like Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP. But they sometimes bring their own. So if you see something like the sysinternals tools in the environment, and all of a sudden they're starting to be used, but that none of the admins use those, then that's something that could be potentially malicious. And while it's a valid tool, if it's not used in that environment, then that's an anomalous activity and should have some detection around it.
But you have to bake time in for this stuff. You can't expect people to just take an extra 2 hours of their day to go find these things. If it's not part of somebody's responsibilities and you don't create time for them to do these things, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, as a security leader, if you take, 5 hours once a month with your team, which seems like a lot, because if you multiply that by 15 people, that's a lot. It's 75 hours. That's 2 weeks of somebody's time, basically. But if you say, hey, we're going to have a detection party, we're all going to come up with we're all going to come, each person's going to take some compromise, some known from the last year that's happened in a number of attacks, and bring it to the table with here's what I think we can do about it. And that's also one of the great ways to prevent burnout, is that we are just on this security treadmill of never-ending alerts, never-ending things that have to be done. And we all want to believe we're hackers. We all want to believe we're out there like proactively doing stuff. But the reality is very few leaders in security bake time into people's month, like even once a month, to do the fun stuff, to do stuff where you can see a meaningful impact at the end of the day. And very few people are going to go out and do that proactively, especially when they're balancing regular lives. So I think some of it comes down to be an effective leader in security, you have to create time for this stuff and not just expect people to take ownership of it and do it on their own because they want a better performance rating in 6 months.
Yeah, when we had the incident response conversation last week, there was a big focus on tabletops and the tabletops being customized to the environment. Well, there's a way to gamify that pretty easily called Backdoors and Breaches. And it's a game that you can play. You can actually play in the web browser.
I put that in my replies to this LinkedIn
Awesome. Yeah. You can put that in, you can go ahead and play in the web browser. You can go ahead and Google it. You can order the card decks, which I highly recommend. And there's expansion packs that multiple companies have done. So playing that game, you could actually have some of the people that are detection engineers or the people that are there at the SOC to monitor for this stuff and go, okay, well, would we be able to detect this? It's a PowerShell running out of an exe that's not PowerShell.exe. Is there a way to detect that? That's something that an attacker would do. And then the question is, you have the person get on their laptop and check to see if that's something you detect. And if so, yeah, great, good, you got it. If not, okay, let's add that to the queue. But again, like Jackie said, and we've been talking about during this discussion, there's got to be a life cycle. There's got to be something that is part of that conversation, part of that detection engineering solution to ensure that there is real detection that's happening. And Jackie, I love your idea of a spot bonus. Incentivize
this detection is fired 100,000 times and has never been tied to a breach.
Right.
It's either broken or get rid of it.
Yeah. And it's a hell of a lot cheaper from a morale and fiscal standpoint to bake this time into people's schedules than have to have people work overtime when something does go wrong, when you finally detect something 6 months later and everybody's then it's, everything's on fire and it's all hands on deck to try to respond to something. So it's, I don't know, we need to stop playing like the short reactive game and start looking at what things make people feel like they're doing meaningful work, because it's really hard in security when the best case scenario is nothing happens. Like that is not a very rewarding day at the office. And so like make things happen, give people the opportunity to proactively resolve things.
Right.
And you probably will have much happier people that are doing better work and have a more well-rounded security skill set.
I think that's a good point. Like how much of this isn't getting done because only one very senior person who doesn't have a lot of time is allowed to change, deprecate, do anything with the detections.
Yeah. Well, because I was just thinking like hire a damn intern. Like college kids are hungry. They're ambitious. They're, like hire an intern to go after some of these, crazy detections that are high volume and figure out what's broken. And I think, Adrian, to your point, I think, the bigger security becomes, now that everything is a security problem, people's skills are getting much more siloed, and that's not a way to run a security function. So to be able to knowledge share and build out people's skill set, I just think it's invaluable. And we do that in most of the other functions within companies, but in security, because it's a very like needs-based thing, we just don't take the time to cross-train people or let them share information.
Yeah, I feel like MITRE ATT&CK has only made this worse because people, and even in his presentation, people are like, oh, coverage, like you're only covering this much of the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is not a baseline to compare yourself against. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is everything an attacker could ever possibly do, which is not how you should build your detections. That's how you get noise. You should build your detections based on what attackers actually do, which is a subset of what's in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. What subset? How many of them? That's what you have to go read those reports, figure that out, emulate breaches that have actually happened.
Yeah. And MITRE ATT&CK isn't comprehensive. It doesn't cover everything. So I did a presentation a couple of years ago about the history of Active Directory security, which included tools, techniques, procedures, attacks. And I linked tools to MITRE ATT&CK, but there were a bunch of them that didn't show up there, which are what attackers and pen testers and red teamers are actually doing. So it's always better to be proactive. That's why you go ahead and get your oil changed when the light comes on, or maybe 20 miles after the light comes on, or something like that. Something within that window, so your engine doesn't seize up and you have to pay a very expensive fee to the mechanic. Just like these circumstances, it's always cheaper to be proactive. It's cheaper to do spot bonuses. It's cheaper to figure out how to get that extra time, get that intern to go ahead and look at things. Because when a breach happens and you're in an IR, an incident response situation, you're responding to it, everyone's working 80 hours, you're going to lose some of your best people, if not all of them, when that happens. And that's something I think that gets missed a lot of the times when it comes to breaches, is some of your best people that keep the lights on literally in that environment, keep the computers running and working so that there's minimal downtime. They're going to leave after working 80 hours for 4 weeks straight.
Yeah. Especially if they realize that, wow, if somebody had just taken 3 hours to look at this 6 months ago, we wouldn't be in this situation. And then you kind of realize where priorities are aligned in your org, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems crazy to me that, if you're getting however many alerts you're getting per day, you've got to think, at the end of that day, we had this many alerts and a breach wasn't happening. Like if that number is 100, if it's 500, if it's 1,000, like that's crazy. That's crazy to alert that many times on nothing happening. Yeah. And it's not, that's not a way to do it. Right. Like I feel like we've approached this problem from the wrong direction. And I'm reading the book Range right now, which is all about your earlier comment, Jackie, that it often takes generalists to figure out these kinds of problems, because we've been making anecdotes like the whole time here. And the book talks a lot about how useful anecdotes can be in solving problems in complex systems. So highly recommend checking out that book. If you want to reboot your detection program, that would be a great place to start. It has lots of examples of how more general experience allows you to approach a problem from a more useful angle, from a better perspective. And that's David Epstein, I believe. Range by David Epstein. All right, that's all the time we have for this week's topic segment. In fact, it was 10 minutes extra, so we're going to take that off of the news portion so the whole podcast isn't longer. Stick around. We'll be right back in a few minutes with the news. In today's threat landscape, cyber attacks move fast, and security gaps, siloed tools, and slow response can turn small incidents into major breaches. That's why organizations need a proactive, unified defense from a single, trusted partner. SentinelOne Wayfinder Threat Detection and Response delivers proactive, scalable defense built for modern threats, unifying expert-led readiness, threat hunting, incident response, and 24/7 managed detection and response. Harnessing Google Threat Intelligence, industry-leading AI technology, and unmatched expertise, Wayfinder helps teams see attacks sooner, respond faster, and reduce risk across the entire attack lifecycle. Ready to stop attacks and accelerate response? Learn more at securityweekly.com/SentinelOne. Wayfinder, where threat intelligence, AI, and human expertise deliver true cyber resilience. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software deployment and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter. METER. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW 443. I actually misspelled it in my script. So 443, like HTTPS, like the port for HTTPS, if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles that we're covering. And this week, we've got a ton of funding. I think we had almost nothing last week. And I'm not sure why the ebb and flow, maybe weeks that have holidays in them. Who knows? I don't know exactly how VC funding works. I imagine banks are involved, so maybe that has an impact on when we see more or less of these pop up in the same week. But I'm always looking for patterns in things. And this week I spotted a pretty hefty pattern in automated red teaming, breach and attack simulation. So we have Horizon 3 AI, we have Armadin security, we have Nove security, a lot of automated red teaming and penetration testing platforms, or breach and attack simulation, something along those lines.
There's also a lot of the funding rounds are around the same amount, which is interesting, like all kind of sub 100 million, which is, so maybe it's just, I wonder if it has to do with fiscal years and when people, because fiscal year 2027 started for a lot of people starts next week, right?
Mm-hmm. Or in April. I know a lot of them end at the end of March, like the previous year. But yeah, interesting stuff. Aikido, ASPM platform, raised a 60 million Series B. The biggest one was that Armadin one that I mentioned, which I'd not heard of before, but they raised 165.2 million venture round. So it doesn't say what round it is. So I haven't had a chance to dig into it. I don't know what that where that big round comes from, if that's private equity or something like that. But I've not heard of Armadin, so that's new to me. The vibe check for this week was: is AI finally solving the problem of tool integration in cyber? And overwhelmingly, the answer was no. It's just another layer that doesn't integrate. 27% said, I figured out how to translate these things into percentages, but by the way, instead
you
of
learned
the way
math? That's awesome.
Instead of the way that Mike Prevett post them, I was like, there's got to be an easier way to copy this over, because the visual stuff doesn't carry into our show notes, our system, because it uses emojis. But 27% said it helps, but the mess underneath remains. 20% says too early to tell, and 13% said yes. And clearly they're wrong. And then there's a comment: a security stack is like an ogre. Like an ogre, it has layers. Then the analogy stops because each layer irritates the other layers it's sandwiched by.
I was having the platform discussion with a vendor last week or the week before, whether they should market themselves as a platform or a single pane in the glass or whatever you want to call it. And, as far as tool integration, I was like, I think people are pretty disillusioned with the term platform, because for a lot of the bigger security companies, they just bought a bunch of different companies and they haven't. So if I have the budget of, and I'm going to call people out, if I have the budget of a Palo Alto or a CrowdStrike and I still can't integrate those tools under my platform, I don't think that AI is going to do it if I've got all of the manpower in the world to throw at it. And it's a difficult problem to solve, because everybody that's built tools from scratch knows that no two tools use the same schemas, formats. Like it's a bear. And I don't know if standards would help here, or if it would be a barrier to innovation and doing things differently. Like if we should try to be adopting, these are the different ways that you should be building these tools in the first place to prevent this issue. But yeah, I don't know that anything's going to solve this issue, because everybody, I always talk about, like, go follow the money. Part of the issue, I think, here is that venture capital and private equity don't want to invest in something unless it's defensible intellectual property. And to build defensible intellectual property, you have to build it differently than other people, right? And so, until we were just talking about incentivizing the right behavior, and there's a fine line there, I think, between intellectual property and, compatibility. And so we build things now to be different and differentiated and disruptive, and that doesn't generally lead to common integration ability, integrate ability.
That works.
Ability to integrate.
So I was having a conversation with a founder earlier this week, and his struggle is that one of his competitors was acquired, and the company that acquired it has a platform, and they're now offering that tool for like a fraction of what they charge for their tool. So they're having this point. The platform product is now a feature within the platform. And that feature is good enough, so it becomes very hard to make the argument that, you should get the point product separately, go through a whole separate procurement process, and to have a slightly, or even if it's amazingly better tool. In a lot of cases, companies are like, you know what, this one's good enough. I don't know that I want to go through all that, and maintain yet another vendor. And have to onboard yet another vendor. So I think it gets tough. As long as the platforms exist and have all these capabilities, it gets harder and harder to justify, we need to buy this special product from this company, and it's the only thing that they do.
Does that fall under the category of Inshitification? A big company gobbles up what is a decent tool, but then all the tools that would have been improving that capability even further end up going out of business.
The way I use Inshitification is a little bit different. It's in fact, I used it to great effect, probably incorrectly on Mastodon earlier this week when I was talking about the Inshitification of computer repair. But the way I understand it, it's when you take something that's perfectly fine and you fuck it up because you can with some new technology. So it works fine. Doesn't need a computer in it, but you stick a computer in it because you can, because it makes it stand out from the other things. So it's now your refrigerator with a touch screen on the front is a differentiator from the other refrigerators, even if it makes it 10 times worse, right? Yeah. And now you have ads in your kitchen.
But so to be fair, though, I have one of those fridges that has a screen in it. And one of the free things that you can get on it is like old school wrestling. So almost 24 hours a day on my Samsung fridge, there is old school like TNA and I looked up the other day and Cactus Jack was on my TV.
So just
and
like streaming video?
Yeah.
You're talking about streaming video?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, my fridge does like streaming video, and one of the options for video like channels you can stream is this like old school wrestling channel. And so it plays all these crazy like old school wrestling matches. And the other day it was Cactus Jack, and I was like, I don't know, it brings a small smile to my face. Awesome. So while it probably doesn't need to be there, and I'm sure I'm being surveillanced in some way,
you could get an old iPad and get a magnet case for it and then stick that iPad on the fridge also.
I could, but when I was at Costco and all loaded up on free samples, it seemed like a good idea to buy a TV with a screen in it. So I guess it's honestly, more like regression to the mean than it is Inshitification of like, it's really hard to make a good tool.
I think that's fine. I don't think that's Inshitification either, because that's two like pretty standard things just combined and put into one another. So like a streaming device put into a fridge, I think is fine. But a streaming device put into a fridge that also monitors what food you're buying and shows you ads and has a microphone on it and it's listening
and a camera.
Like that's the Inshitification.
It does that too, and none of it works well. Like that's the crazy. Yeah. So like you're supposed to be able to. It recognizes everything in the fridge because it's got a camera in the fridge, and none of that shit works. So the only piece of this that I use is just the wrestling on the TV. Awesome. So there you go. Like I spent an extra $600 for all this crap that doesn't work. It's supposed to be able to auto reorder stuff from Amazon for you. Like there are all these things it was supposed to be able to do, and none of them work.
It doesn't work. One more question. Is it a Samsung?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's a Samsung that has, and it's supposed to have Alexa built in, or Bixby. I think Bixby is actually technically, but then that's supposed to connect to Amazon and be able to like recognize the food in your fridge, and then you're supposed to be able to like one tap reorder. The only part that works is that it reorders its own water filter when it's expired. That's the only thing that actually works. It is.
That's useful.
So I appreciate that piece.
Yeah, ask my partner how she feels about Samsung sometime.
I'm going to text her as soon as we're done.
we also have a Samsung fridge. All right. Let's see. That was a bit of a rabbit hole. We digress.
Nice squirrel story.
But yeah, I think it's generally trying to shove an extra revenue stream in where it doesn't belong and no one wants it. I think that's kind of the heart of Inshitification, and that might apply to some of these acquisitions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a few acquisitions here. So funny enough, or ironically enough, Zurich eyes evolving cyber market with $10 billion Beasley bid. So this is in the cyber insurance space, and it's not been that long. So I remember Zurich CEO famously saying that cyber is uninsurable. And now they're talking about buying one of the largest cyber insurance companies or reinsurance companies. So that's kind of rich. Then also Strong DM was picked up, which was a just-in-time privileged access management platform for DevOps and AI workloads. Was picked up by Delinea. My good friend Tim Prendergast over there, I haven't talked to him in forever, with another nice exit there. I think he previously started a company called Evident.io that I want to say was picked up by Palo Alto and became part of Prisma. Good stuff there. So a couple free tools here. To be honest, so Lenny Zeltzer, another good friend, love a lot of his stuff. Maybe I just haven't dived into MCP. It's because I haven't really played with it that much myself, but I'm not sure I fully grok what he's releasing here. But write good incident response reports using your AI tool. I released an MCP server to give your AI expertise to write good IR reports from raw notes or get constructive feedback on existing content. So I guess the MCP server is like...
it probably tells the AI how to structure the IR report, so that it's not just spitting it out based on other IR reports that it's found on the internet.
Right. Yeah.
Because MCP says like, hey, when we're expecting this structure, this information goes here, this information goes here. So I'm guessing based on kind of high level read of this, that it's giving it more of a framework for how an IR report should be written and what information needs to be in the IR report.
That's how I read it as well.
So it sounds like just another way of doing this. Like you could also build a gem or a GPT the same way, I would think. Feed it the same, like you can feed it data that way, right? Mm-hmm. Or is that just instructions?
Yeah, you can. Well, you can give it, I build gems for Gemini all the time, which is similar.
That's what I was
so basically give it, one of the issues that I find with gems though, is that sometimes Gemini will overly rely on the content of the samples you give it. So all of a sudden you'll end up with like, if you gave it like 10 different IR reports and was like, hey, this is the structure I want these reports in, you may end up finding stuff from one of those 10 reports in the report that's being written, which isn't not what you want.
No.
Yeah. So I and maybe I just suck at Gemini, but I have not figured a good way out to keep it from over pivoting to the stuff that's in its training material.
Yeah, maybe you need to take those actual reports and turn them into like generic, like strip out the anonymize them first, do some data cleaning first, and then feed it to them so that there's no chance that the wrong company name pops up in your IR report, which I've seen happen. Copy and paste happens a lot in the consulting world, and I've seen vulnerability reports and pen test reports with chunks of other companies' reports in them, and clients don't like that. I didn't do it. Somebody I worked with did it. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, so I have the same take as Jackie on that. Basically, there's even a Claude example of how you can point Claude at the MCP and have it adjust the framing of it. And there's a zip download that you can use locally. But the whole perspective was you could generate an IR report based on the information that you feed the LLM locally. So that way the MCP doesn't have anything to do with it, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love how flexible this is.
Yes.
I love that it's just data, right? Like now I'm starting to think of like I've got a bunch of stuff sitting around from workshops I've built and stuff like that. Maybe I should be doing more of this. I only need 9 days in the standard week and 36 hours in each of those days, and
no problem.
And then I'll get to
Make it so.
Too many fun ideas, good ideas, not enough time to do them all. The other free tool here was Trail of Bits, also AI related, created Claude Code skills. So I guess again, kind of the same thing, where they've kind of pre-built, prompts and things like that you can just adopt and execute. So they've got a GitHub that they've created here. And, just like Lenny Zeltzer's thing where it's like Claude, MCP, add, and then you just add his thing. Again, here, it's just a single command line / plugin marketplace, add trail of bits / skills. So I like that it's that easy to add this stuff that people are sharing. Because Trail of Bits, I mean, they're pretty serious AppSec consultancy. A lot of skills there, and this is the stuff they actually use on engagements. Like that's pretty cool that they've shared it.
Yeah,
a lot of value there.
More of this from people, please.
Yeah, great stuff. Love sharing this stuff. Jen Easterly was named the CEO of RSAC. Which was not something I was expecting, from, I guess from public policy, like still a very public position. It's an events company. She does a lot of speaking. So like, I see a lot of connections there, but, yeah, what were you guys surprised at this also?
I was surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense because she's a phenomenal public speaker. And And I guess it also makes sense because she's had a broad amount of experience across public, private, and so probably has a really good sense for what you want what people want to get out of one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in the country, and what value you need to provide to make it worth their employers coughing up the almost $2,000 it costs to buy them a pass for this conference. Yeah, because I love RSAC, I do, but it has become somewhat overwhelming to the extent that you can spend a lot of time wandering around lost or collecting crappy swag in the show hall and not get a ton out of it. So hopefully she's given her kind of mission focus, and she's former military, right? Being able to kind of identify, like, here are the various paths and here are the ways to navigate this. I was surprised, but also delighted.
And they're trying very hard. The reason it's RSAC now and not RSA conference is they're trying very hard to add year-round stuff to it. So they have like a whole social network. They have an app. They're encouraging people to, use it just like LinkedIn. There's topics you can reply and comment on the topics. They've got people writing articles, putting together like webcasts and stuff like that. So they're trying to turn it into more of a big community engine, that doesn't just live off all the other resources out there like LinkedIn and Blue Sky and stuff like that, but actually kind of, people who come to RSA, I think the vision is they continue interacting with the RSA company year round, not just leading up to the big event in San Francisco.
I just don't have bandwidth for another social media platform.
Me neither.
Like
I'm ready. I'm almost done with Blue Sky at this point. Like, I get a lot more value out of Mastodon. Yeah. I did notice they added a really cool feature where you can change your status every time you go live, and somebody can just click on your avatar wherever they see it, and it will take it to take them to whatever live stream that you're currently on. I thought that was kind of cool. But aside from that, I just, I don't know. I'm not getting nearly as much out of it as I am out of Mastodon, even though Mastodon is still stupidly hard to use. Every time somebody sends me a link and it's not on infosec.exchange, it doesn't work. I can't like it. I can't boost it. I can't interact with it. I have to copy the URL, paste it into infosec.exchange, search it, and then click the link, and then I can interact with it. So dumb.
Yeah. There's just only, I feel like many companies have tried to go this way, like Black Hat's owned by Informa, which has its own like media network and things like that. And like
it's owned by UBM, which is owned by Informa.
Yeah. And I just
so huge. Informa is massive.
And maybe other people working different. You and I, Adrian, are both like, we both have like 8 side gigs, right? And so I only have so much time in a day, and networking is like one of the cringiest things in the world to me. Like I really enjoy the organic experience of meeting people at conferences, but I have yet to find any social media network, even the specialized ones like this, that provides anywhere near. Like, it just seems like it turns into all these, like, look at me posts, or I need a job. Those are like the only 2 categories of things that end up on these websites is like, look at me or I need a job, which is just a different version of look at me. So I just only have so much energy for them. So hopefully she has a clear direction in kind of where the value lies and how to deliver that to people. Because I would love to see smaller regional RSAC events and meetups and things like that, almost like a B-Sides. But I only have so many weeks in a month to attend conferences. Right. And I think I've got at least one, and sometimes 2 every month from now until November.
And sadly, this weekend I'm going to be missing District Con in DC. I tapped out of that because it looks like they're getting 18 inches of snow in one day or something like that. And
there's a lot of snow inbound Saturday night into this area. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to get trapped there and have to pay for a bunch of extra hotel nights because I can't get out. It was just something I wanted to go to for fun. It looks like a really cool conference. And it makes me really sad that I had to cancel my I didn't have to cancel my stuff, but
well, the hard thing is storm. DC, like I live there, and in the DMV, they're just not ready for snow. Like I've lived in New Hampshire, we got 10 million snow plows in New Hampshire. Everybody's got a bucket of sand at the end of their driveway. Like it's not a big deal if you get 2 feet of snow. But in DC, they just don't have the infrastructure for it. Nobody's got snow tires. So everybody's just like all over the roads. There's no plows. There's no nobody.
You can't justify it for 1 week out of every year.
Every other year.
Investment.
Yeah. Like we would get maybe a sprinkling, like an inch of snow would be like a big thing. And my kids would be out making snow angels because it happens so seldom. So I have a bunch of friends who are going, and I think they're planning on, hunkering down together and making it like a whole thing. But
it could be fun. It could be fun if you don't mind getting stuck there. But I've got other stuff I got to get done that week, so I had to tap out of it. The other, speaking of socials and new stuff happening with marketing and all that, Substack now has Substack TV. So they have streaming apps for like Roku, Apple TV, for a bunch of those platforms. And they're pushing video pretty hard on their platform. So I think they're mostly competing with LinkedIn there because the audiences are similar. There's a lot of like business professional type content there, though, like ordinary social content has also kind of bled into both platforms. But it could be, competition's good. Could be interesting. Let's see. So 2 trends here that are related, number 5 and number 6. I'll just read the headlines here from the Register. Majority of CEOs report zero payoff from AI splurge. And then the next one here from the Wall Street Journal. This is one of 2 reports, independent reports that I saw that basically saying the same thing, that the executives are saying one thing about how useful AI, and the people using it are saying almost the opposite. So that it's not super surprising to me that there's communication issues between rank and file workers and the execs. But it does seem to be a trend. Like some of these big swings, big enterprise swings at AI, and it's exactly the thing that I warned about in my best janitor or worst superhero talk that I gave a couple times in 2023, 2024.
Yeah.
Like it's totally going to be useful for a bunch of stuff, but it's not going to completely re-engineer how your business works.
Yeah, the Register article
for most businesses.
The Register article that covers the PricewaterhouseCoopers PwC report, they say, and this is my favorite paragraph in the entire article. The report then goes to explain that scaling up demands, quote, strong AI foundations, end quote, including a technology environment that enables AI integration, a clearly defined roadmap for AI initiatives, formalized risk processes, and, quote, an organization culture that enables AI adoption, end quote. Then it says, so if your AI projects fail, you clearly just don't believe enough.
No, it's that you didn't make using AI part of your employees' goals, because we go back to what we've been hammering on this whole episode, which is what you measure matters. And I had somebody from Accenture reach out to me, and Accenture wrote a very large check for AI and then made it their employees' problem. And that, yeah, you are going to figure out how to use this. And if you can't justify how this made you more productive on your next performance review, you better expect to get a low rating.
Wow.
And that's
somebody was sharing a video from Accenture where they're talking about how amazing the metaverse was going to be. And they're all wearing headsets and stuff like that. Apparently, it's one of those companies you just reach out to and it's like, how much do we need to pay you for you to create a commercial for our new technology?
Wow.
Well, because for Accenture, humans are just a means to capital. Like, and that's the problem at a company like that, is that they're not dealing in humans. They're dealing in headcount and very replaceable. I'm sorry, Accenture, I'm not, but yeah. And I think that unfortunately what I experienced a lot doing executive consulting in every industry I've ever done it in is hubris. And so some CEO writes an 8-figure, you spend $15-20 million on this stupid AI project, and you're never going to say, oh, we're not getting the return on investment we need from that. You're going to tell your employees, figure out how to make this not look like a dumb idea on my part, because it's definitely a dumb idea on your part if it doesn't work, right? And like, it's unfortunate. And not that I don't believe that some companies can realize some amount of value out of it. I just think that they're being sold this very large ROI that's never going to materialize. And this year is probably the year that we start to see some of that collapse, because employees are only going to do the stupid thing because you told them they had to for so long before they go back to doing things the way that works.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably getting shorter and shorter. And it really does feel like the patience is running out, which is why, our first topic segment, we were talking about the what we're going to cover this year. And it really does feel like the kind of put up or shut up year for AI offerings, AI projects, all this AI stuff. People are getting a little sick of it, I think.
Well, and also this probably relates to number 10, which is that you're also going to start to see significant compromises because of AI, because there's this drive to like, you have to use this. We already paid for it. It's got to get deployed. Sometimes that backfires. And, we'll start to see the cost of compromises because of AI tools outweigh whatever benefit you think you're getting. Because when you have to pay those employees, like Sean was saying, to work 80-hour weeks for 6 weeks to respond to some stupid incident, that's going to probably cause all of your AI gains to evaporate.
Yeah, and this was totally design issues here. This was story number 10, the AI vulnerability in ServiceNow was discovered by Aaron Costello, who we had on the podcast a couple of years back, who's pretty well known and got his job as chief of security research at Omni from his research. So I think it was 2020 he did, or maybe it was before that. He had some great, found some good issues in Salesforce Lightning, and then NetSuite after that. but he kind of specializes in finding kind of logical, all kinds of different vulnerabilities in SaaS applications. So that's been kind of the area where he's excelled. And in this case, it was a static credential that was the same across all companies, and the linking of identities between ServiceNow and other applications like Slack didn't require any kind of human in the loop or check or MFA or anything like that. So all you needed to know was that static credential and the email of somebody at the company. And you could basically impersonate that person. And if you found an admin, then he was able to link to the AI tool and did some stuff through that. It's pretty elaborate. There's a good write-up of it on App Omni's website.
Well, I can't help but wonder if that's why ServiceNow bought Armis, which is the exposure management tool, a couple weeks ago, because they were like, oh, this is going to get expensive. We might as well just buy the company.
Yeah. It's it was just bad design. It was just like there's people at ServiceNow that knew better, that knew they were making security trade-offs for a reduction in friction to make the product easier and smoother to use.
Well, yeah,
just one of those classic trade-off decisions.
He leveraged one of the newer AI tools in order to create an admin account for him, so he had persistence in the AI in the ServiceNow cloud.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I mentioned Salesforce.
Yeah, too many SaaS stuff going on. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a pain in the SaaS.
Any other ones you want to cover before we wrap here? Or should we just jump to the squirrel story here so we don't go over on time?
Yeah, let's not give our producers a heart attack.
Did you guys get a chance to watch
this?
Yes,
I did. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
So this is a YouTube short, and I learned from watching this that there is one company, at least in the West, in the US, that still sells floppy disks. They have a finite number of floppy disks because nobody is printing the magnetic media that actually goes inside the floppy disk, which if you've ever taken it out, it's just like a couple of micron thin, just like floppy. It's literally floppy, like little piece of plastic in there.
Yeah.
It's the thinness of a piece of plastic that covers your hummus that you strip off, like when you open up like your feta cheese or your hummus or something like that. There's that plastic protective layer. It's that thin, and nobody makes those anymore. So they basically, this one guy is selling old stock floppies, all different sizes and shapes and varieties. And when they're gone, they're gone. I think he said, do you remember how long he said before he sells them all
4
out
years.
at the current rate? It was like 4
years.
4 years. Yeah. And basically the video goes
1,000
through
a
all
day.
the different scenarios.
He sells 1,000 a day, and in 4 years he'll run out. Because Sony shut down and he bought, I don't know, 1 million floppy disks from them.
Millions. Yeah. Multiple millions. Yeah. Yeah. And the rest of the video just goes through all the situations where they still use these things. So up until a couple of years ago, to update the firmware on some 747s, you needed floppy disks, but I think those are retired now. U.S. defense, like missile defense, required floppy disks.
Core banking servers.
Music.
There are a lot of small banks and credit unions that are still on IBM 900s that that's what you got to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if somebody will come up with some kind of like it has an SD card in it or something like that. Like it pretends to be. Like I remember I had a Samsung Note 5, or maybe an 8. I forget which one it was, but it had this feature where it would simulate a magnetic field to simulate a credit card swipe. So instead of NFC to pay, it could actually, because people would say, oh, you can't tap to pay on this. You're not going to be able to use your phone. I was like, watch me. Check this out. And you get it close and it simulates the magnetic stripe of the credit card being swiped through. They had a name for it. I forget what the name was. But I wonder if somebody, after these floppies are all gone, comes up with something that emulates, like physically emulates a floppy when you insert it.
Like, remember the tape aux
just
cord?
about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the audio tape, you would put and it had an aux cord coming out of it for your
But it's going to
Walkman.
require power to do that. So you'll have this floppy shaped thing that has a USB-C port on it so you can recharge it.
Yeah.
It would look pretty funky.
The ultimate,
But I bet you
ultimate
could do that.
reusable floppy disks.
Well, with the price of RAM these days, we may be forced to go
Right?
back
No
to
kidding.
those.
Well, whoever wants to take that and run with it, I'm sure that's at least a $4 million idea, because some people are still going to need floppies after this guy sells out. But yeah, the other one was music
Equipment,
studio
Synthesizers and
equipment.
stuff.
The old mod.
That's how you get the wave. That's how you get the samples and the wave files on them. Is a floppy disk.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a really fun DEF CON village.
That would be the floppy village.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many villages. For all I know, it's probably been there for 10 years already, and I've just never come across it because there's so many villages. I can't keep up with them.
Yeah, I'm helping plan the WESIS conference this year, and we're incorporating like a smaller version, sort of like villages, but just for more technical content for women who are more technical than like the higher level stuff. And I went to copy the list of DEF CON villages just to give them an idea. And I was like, it's like this long on the webpage. I was like, oh my God, there's like 50 something villages at DEF CON.
Yeah. It's madness. All right. With that, I think we've run out of time here. Thanks so much, Sean and Jackie, for joining me today. Today was a fun one for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Always.
Thank you.
Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we'll be talking to Warwick Webb from SentinelOne about understanding modern attack flows. And we will see you then. Bye-bye.